What if Spider-Man entered the boys' universe and became its most loved hero? How would Homelander take it? How would Vought react? Imagine this. During Infinity War, when Thanos snapped away half the universe, Spider-Man simply didn't disappear. He fell into the boys' universe, a world that looked so much like his own, yet couldn't have been more different. For the next few days, Peter, both in and out of the suit, roamed the city, trying to make sense of his situation. It didn't take long. One night, he sat on top of a building. So, no Avengers, huh? No S.H.I.E.L.D., completely different superheroes, and the technology sucks here. My Iron Spider suit is probably the most advanced piece of tech in this world, which means I'm stuck here until I find my own way home. He took a deep breath. I hope everyone's okay. Mr. Stark, Ned, Aunt May, and he muttered to himself. A blur streaked across the street. Then he saw something horrifying. A man moving so fast he looked like a flash of light ran straight through a woman. She exploded into a bloody mist. Spider-Man leapt down to the scene, where Huey stood frozen in shock, clutching Robin's hands, without the rest of her body. Spider-Man tried to catch A-Train, but no matter how many shortcuts he took, he couldn't match his speed. Karen, a little help here? Of course, Peter. Calculating trajectories. Vector lines appeared across his mask. Peter took the shortest route, reached an alley, and fired a web. Right on cue, A-Train sped into it. The web wrapped around his legs, sending him crashing to the ground. Peter immediately webbed him up, but for some reason, A-Train wasn't even fighting back. His expression was strange, almost panicked. "What's wrong with you, man?" Spider-Man muttered. With no police in sight, Peter dragged A-Train back to the scene. When the police arrived, they took A-Train into custody, giving Spider-Man a puzzled look. "Yo, Web Weaver, you got a new costume?" "A Web Weaver?" Peter frowned. He tried to talk to Huey, but the ambulance had already taken the still shocked Huey away. The next morning, Peter was swinging through the city. Well, enough feeling sorry for myself. Let's figure this out one step at a time. First, get familiar with the city. He picked up a newspaper, but there was no mention of A-Train running through a woman. How did they bury a story this big? A superhero killed an innocent woman. What's a bigger scoop than that? For the next few days, Spider-Man kept checking the news, but Robin's death was nowhere to be found. When the story finally broke, A-Train claimed that he had been chasing a bank robber and that the whole thing was just a tragic accident. There wasn't any robbery. Peter frowned. I thought these guys were just celebrities. Damn, they even cover up their crimes. Peter tracked Huey down at the electronics store, approaching him as Peter instead of Spider-Man. "Hey, how are you doing?" Peter asked with a faint smile. "Hello, how can I help you?" Huey had clearly not recovered. His eyes were still red. Peter chatted with him about electronics for a few minutes, but couldn't bring himself to ask about Robin. So he left, but kept watching Huey from a distance. That's when Peter sees Butcher recruit Huey. One thing leads to another, and Translucent follows Huey back to the store. He slams Huey's head into the counter before trying to crush him with a TV. Just when Huey thought it was over, the window shattered. Spider-Man swung in and kicked Translucent into the wall. "You okay, buddy?" "A Web Weaver? Seriously, who is this Web Weaver guy?" "I'm Spider-Man." Translucent threw a kick, but Spider-Man flipped right over him. "Come on, it's not polite to hit someone from behind." He webbed up Translucent and slammed him into the ceiling, then the floor, then the wall. "How can you see me?" "Oh, didn't I mention? Heat vision." That's when Butcher walked in. He froze for a second at the sight of Spider-Man. "Aye, who the hell are you, mate?" he asked, pointing his gun at Spider-Man. "You're the guy who took away Huey this morning." Spider-Man webbed up the gun and yanked it out of Butcher's hand. Just as they were about to fight, Butcher spoke. "Police and Vought will be here in 3 minutes." The three exchanged a glance and escaped to Butcher's hideout. Peter listened as Butcher and Frenchie argued over how to kill Translucent. "You're actually trying to kill him?" Butcher looked at Spider-Man. "Look, mate, I'm glad you helped us, but I hate soups. Every last one of them, including you. So before I start figuring out how to kill your arse too, either get the hell out or help us kill this nut." Peter stepped outside to clear his head. He wasn't from this world and he still didn't fully understand it. But from everything he'd seen, superheroes here were just celebrities protecting their image. They had no sense of duty or responsibility. They were only in it for themselves. But is it really my place to interfere? What should I do? When Peter returned, it was already over. Huey had killed Translucent. He stood there, frozen in horror, staring at what he'd done. That's when Peter realized, if people with power refuse to take responsibility, innocent people are forced to pay the price. He joined the boys, and his first act was earning their trust by revealing his face. Butcher still didn't trust Spider-Man, but he knew he was useful. None of his intel had ever mentioned a soup this powerful. Meanwhile, Butcher started investigating Spider-Man's origins. Around the same time, Mother's Milk joined the team. while Homelander learned that Translucent was dead. Huey grew closer to Starlight, attended the Believe Expo, and even crossed paths with Homelander. Spider-Man, meanwhile, had only one goal: to be himself. He wasn't registered with Vought or any superhero organization, yet he quickly became the city's most active hero. Every day he stopped crimes, big and small, handed the criminals over to the police, and left before anyone could thank him. That's exactly why people loved him. Before long, he was rivaling the Seven in popularity, without spending a single dollar on PR. Soon, everyone knew the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, including Vought's executives. While everything else unfolded, Spider-Man kept a close eye on A-Train. He still couldn't understand how a superhero could be so casual about killing someone, and he couldn't forget how strangely A-Train had behaved that day. Before long, Peter uncovered A-Train's secret: his relationship with Popclaw and their addiction to Compound V. He brought the information back to the boys, and together they gathered enough evidence to expose him. As they debated how to use it, the perfect opportunity presented itself. Starlight could no longer keep up the act and publicly exposed the Deep's assault, destroying his reputation. At the same time, Spider-Man's popularity soared after he stopped a predator on the street, and the footage went viral. Desperate to repair Vought's image, Madeline Stillwell made a major announcement. Vought wanted to recruit Spider-Man. Then, to everyone's surprise, the media broke the news that Spider-Man had agreed to sign with Vought at a public press conference the following week. Even Stillwell was surprised. Homelander was furious. Why are you recruiting someone without asking me? And who the hell is this vermin? Isn't this the same guy as Web Weaver? No, I already checked. They're different, Stillwell replied. This bug, I don't like him. What's with this friendly neighborhood Spider-Man nonsense? Is someone pumping up his PR? Homelander seethed as he watched Spider-Man soak up the praise. Stillwell immediately played into his ego. I know he shouldn't be getting this attention. It should all be yours. That's why I'm bringing him in. I'll sideline him after I've milked his reputation to boost yours. He'll become your stepping stone. Homelander grinned. A week later, the press conference began. Spider-Man swung onto the stage. Homelander, Stillwell, and the rest of Vought were already waiting. But before he could sign the contract, every screen in the room was suddenly hacked. Footage of A-Train getting high on Compound V with Popclaw filled every screen. The room fell silent as Spider-Man calmly picked up the microphone. Well, this is awkward. So far, we've got a predator and a drug addict in the Seven. Honestly, I'm a little scared to find out about the rest. He turned toward Homelander, whose smile had completely disappeared. Until I'm sure there aren't any more surprises, I don't think Vought is the kind of company I want representing me. With that, Spider-Man swung away, ignoring every question, and Stillwell desperately calling after him. Spider-Man's refusal was a PR disaster for Vought. The media wouldn't let it go, and before long the news reached Stan Edgar. He called Stillwell into his office. Because of your stunt, Spider-Man has become the standard people use to judge our morality. Unless he joins us, the Seven will never clean up their image. It would take a miracle, and I don't believe in miracles. What do you want me to do, sir? Handle it. Meanwhile, the boys learned the truth about Compound V from Ezekiel, while Homelander grew even more unstable as he uncovered more about his past. As Huey and Starlight's relationship became increasingly complicated, Peter grew suspicious of Butcher's secretive behavior and decided to follow him. Watching from the shadows, Spider-Man witnessed the confrontation between Butcher, Homelander, Becca, and Ryan. For the first time, Peter realized their conflict was far more personal than he'd imagined, and Ryan was an innocent child caught in the middle. Peter stayed hidden. He knew his presence would only make the situation worse. After meeting Ryan, Butcher disappeared for the next few months. While Butcher was away, Peter put his genius to work, analyzing Compound V. The rest of the boys went into hiding. Peter never stopped being Spider-Man. His reputation kept growing, and whenever fans asked if he joined the Seven, he reminded them of Vought's past. Because of him, every Vought PR campaign fell flat. The only thing they successfully buried was Translucent's death. Then Stormfront joined the Seven. At first, she managed to shift public opinion. Peter wasn't sure what to make of her, especially since she openly criticized Vought despite working for them. Meanwhile, Huey and Starlight leaked the truth about Compound V, exposing that superheroes were created, not born. The revelation shook the world and dealt another massive blow to Vought's credibility. Around the same time, Butcher returned, focused solely on rescuing Becca and protecting Ryan. As trust in the Seven continued to collapse, Spider-Man became the standard every supe was judged against. Without promoting himself or attacking Vought directly, he had become their greatest PR nightmare. Butcher took charge again, but Huey had started questioning his methods. His whatever-it-takes attitude no longer sat well with him. Meanwhile, Homelander kept visiting Becca and Ryan. trying to play the perfect father. Becca tolerated it, but not because she feared for Ryan's safety. She feared the man he might become. At the same time, Stormfront expertly manipulated public opinion, subtly taking shots at both Vought and Homelander while winning people over online. Meanwhile, the boys tracked down a super terrorist, only to discover he was Kimiko's brother, Kenji. Once again, it became clear that Vought had manufactured another threat to make Soups look necessary. Stormfront went after Kenji to boost her public image. Along the way, she casually murdered people of color. But just as she was about to kill him, Spider-Man arrived. Stormfront's flight and lightning made her a formidable opponent. But once Karen finished analyzing her attack patterns, Peter quickly turned the fight around. Spider-Man beat the living daylights out of Stormfront, leaving her unconscious with several broken bones. Kenji was safe, but before the boys could move him or Stormfront, Homelander arrived. Spider-Man and Homelander clashed head-on. Fighting in the open against powers he'd never faced before, Peter struggled to keep up. But Homelander wasn't unharmed either. Even he was surprised by Spider-Man's strength, and the longer they fought, the harder Peter became to read. When Homelander finally caught hold of Spider-Man, Stormfront staggered back to her feet and fired a blast of lightning. Peter fired a web at her, throwing off her aim. The lightning struck Homelander instead. Using the opening, Peter escaped with the boys, knocking Stormfront unconscious again before taking her with them. The boys handed Kenji and Stormfront over to the CIA. In return, they received two crucial leads. One pointed them to Sage Grove. The other was intelligence about a weapon in Russia capable of killing Homelander, the same weapon rumored to have killed Soldier Boy. The boys split up. Butcher, Mother's Milk, Frenchie, and Kimiko headed to Russia while Spider-Man and Huey investigated Sage Grove. With Karen's help, Spider-Man copied every file in the facility. Horrified by the experiments they uncovered, Peter and Huey left more determined than ever to bring Vought down. Meanwhile, Butcher's team reached Russia, expecting to find a weapon. Instead, they found Soldier Boy. Spider-Man continued his friendly neighborhood patrols, making sure Vought stayed under constant media scrutiny. One night, he was ambushed by a speedster in blue and a pervert in green. A-Train and the Deep attacked together. A-Train focused on keeping Spider-Man off balance, while the Deep relied on brute strength. But Peter was far stronger than either of them imagined. Within seconds, Spider-Man beat the living daylights out of the Deep, leaving him crumpled on the street. A-Train was next. He wasn't any match for Spider-Man's agility or intelligence. But just when Peter thought it was over, I knew these shitbags couldn't do a single thing right. Homelander's eyes burned red as he landed in the street. He didn't wait for Spider-Man to speak. He vanished, reappearing with his fist buried in Spider-Man's ribs. The impact launched Peter through a building and into the next, cracking the brickwork as the Iron Spider legs snapped out to absorb most of the blow. Homelander stepped through the wreckage. "I can hear your heartbeat," he said calmly. "It's making that sound hearts make right before they stop. And I absolutely love that sound." Spider-Man ran. Webs, fire escapes, distractions. None of it mattered. Homelander tore through everything, swatting aside webs like they were nothing before sending Peter flying across another rooftop. Peter knew he was outmatched, so he stopped running. "I was hoping I wouldn't have to use this." A small device dropped from the Iron Spider armor, a flash grenade modified with a piercing ultrasonic charge. It exploded beside Homelander's head. The light did nothing. The sound did. For the first time, Homelander stumbled. He clutched his ears as the frequency ripped through the one sense he couldn't shut off. His punch sliced through empty air. A web line shot across the avenue. Peter disappeared into the darkness 3 blocks away before Homelander recovered. Homelander was furious. He returned to Vought and ordered everyone to find Spider-Man so he could kill him. But Spider-Man had vanished. As Homelander grew more unstable, Stan Edgar stepped in. To keep him under control, he launched an anti-Spider-Man campaign. Webweaver's suit was modified to resemble Spider-Man's, and Vought staged fake incidents, fake accidents, fake assaults, abuse of power. They turned Spider-Man into the city's newest public enemy. But before the campaign could take hold, new footage flooded the internet. The videos showed Homelander promising A-Train and the Deep their spots back in the 7 if they killed Spider-Man. There were also recordings of them openly discussing their crimes, and even planning how to frame Spider-Man. No matter what Vought tried, the videos kept spreading. Somewhere in the shadows, Peter watched it all unfold with a smile. "You guys can play all the tricks you want, but you can't beat Karen. Stark Tech is insane." Vought scrambled to contain the damage, but even their IT and PR teams couldn't make a dent in it. Meanwhile, Homelander tried to soothe his bruised ego by visiting Ryan. Instead, he found his son watching the news, admiring Spider-Man. Something inside him snapped. "You're my son. Mine. You should only admire me." He turned to Becca. "You're filling his head with the wrong ideas. I'm taking him with me." Homelander forcibly took Ryan away, refusing to let him out of his sight. Ryan grew terrified of his own father. A few days later, Vought held a press conference to repair its image. Stan Edgar addressed the media himself. Naturally, every reporter there was in Vaught's pocket. But thousands of protesters suddenly stormed the event, surrounding the stage and screaming at Homelander. Amid the chaos, one of the bottles struck Ryan. Seeing his son hurt was the final straw. Homelander snapped. His eyes burned red. Just as his heat vision fired, a drone suddenly intercepted the blast, reflecting it straight into the Vought tower. Shooting people with lasers is a big no-no. Before Homelander could react, every screen was hijacked once again. Footage from Sage Grove, the Compound V experiments, and years of evidence exposing Vaught's crimes filled every screen. Then Peter's voice echoed across the city. Vought doesn't create heroes, it creates products. Even your beloved Homelander is nothing more than a lab experiment gone wrong. Homelander finally snapped. Every camera captured his true face. The mask was gone. He was no longer the world's greatest hero, and it all happened because of one person, Spider-Man. The moment Homelander looked at him, Spider-Man swung away, slipping past security into the Vought tower. Homelander followed him inside. He found Spider-Man standing alone in the Seven's meeting room. "Why did you do this?" Peter stayed silent, glancing down just long enough to see the boys arrive below. "I'm talking to you." Finally, Peter looked back at him. "It's my responsibility. People like you don't deserve power like that, and everyone deserves to know who you really are." "I'll kill you," Homelander growled. "I'm the strongest creature on this planet. I'll crush you, and no one can stop me." "I probably can." Soldier Boy's eyes locked onto Peter as he shielded Ryan. "Move, kid." "No, that's my Spider-Man webbed his mouth shut. "Language." Soldier Boy ripped the webbing away, fury flashing across his face. "You don't get to tell me what to do with my own." "He's not yours. He's a kid standing in front of a man who burns people alive." Soldier Boy's fists clenched. The ground cracked beneath his boots. "Get out of the way, Parker." "Make me." He swung first. Peter barely ducked, the force of the punch alone tearing a gash through the wall behind him. At the same moment, Homelander burst from the rubble, blood and rage in his eyes, lunging at Peter from the opposite side. Now Peter stood between them, literally. A blast of heat grazed his shoulder. A fist the size of a cinder block slammed into his ribs. Karen's remaining drones scattered as half of them were destroyed, their reflector panels sparking uselessly across the floor. "Karen, status. Suit integrity at 34%. I recommend immediate retreat." "Not an option." Peter webbed Soldier Boy's wrist mid-swing, yanking him off balance just as Homelander's punch flew past where Peter had been. It slammed straight into Soldier Boy's jaw. Soldier Boy roared and swung back blindly, his own punch crashing into Homelander. It wasn't enough. Peter's HUD flashed crimson. 3 cracked ribs, critical oxygen levels. One spider leg hung dead at his side, sparks pouring from its joints. He could barely stand or even see. The 2 strongest men in the world prepare their finishing blows. Peter dove aside as Soldier Boy's chest blast collided head-on with Homelander's heat vision. 2 apocalyptic forces collided, unleashing a shockwave that hurled Peter into a wall and left both men on their knees, smoking, blinded, and drained. Peter pulled 2 syringes from a hidden compartment. Inside was an isotope compound he developed using the Sage Grove research, designed to bind to Compound V at a cellular level and slowly shut it down. He plunged one syringe into Homelander's neck, the other into Soldier Boy's. Both men convulsed as their strength drained away. "Butcher, now!" Butcher was already there, Ryan safely behind him. "You sure about this, Parker?" "No. Help me anyway." Together they dragged both men into the cryo chambers hidden beneath the facility. The doors hissed shut. Frost crawled across the glass. Peter slumped against the wall, every cracked rib protesting as his vision blurred. "Karen, log this." "Logging. Project Antidote. Status Phase 1 contained." Peter looked up at the 2 frozen faces behind the glass. Monsters. Finally still. "Phase 2. He let out a tired smile. "It's gonna take years."